All right, we are live. I don't know how exactly how laggy this is gonna be, but we'll figure it out. That actually sounds okay. Not too laggy so far. Y'all, it's been a minute, but I'm back. Been busy, but some decent, some decent weather. I guess not decent weather will always bring me back to it. So when it gets interesting enough, you definitely can expect to hear from me about it. But let's just get right to it. There's no sugarcoating this one. It's probably going to be a pretty dangerous situation upcoming for the coast of Florida, and you can all note you can notice on the satellite we have two main things in the picture currently. We have Hurricane Franklin, Major Hurricane Franklin, which is almost a Category 5, 150-mile-per-hour hurricane, I believe, and we also have either soon. Let's check the latest advisory here from the National Hurricane Center. Still tropical storm Idalia, soon to be Hurricane Idalia. That's why I put that there. And it is going to be a significant impact for the coast of Florida. Let's briefly talk about Franklin, rip current threat for the coast, and also Nova Scotia. That is the main threat, not a threat to the U.S. mainland. Idalia, on the other hand, is going to be a major threat to the U.S. coastline, all the way up the western side of Florida, all the way up the Gulf Coast. There should expect some significant impacts. Right, and be ready, for storm surge, for significant flash flooding, heavy rainfalls, tropical downpours, and also expect there to be strong wind, potentially destructive wind, with the Dahlia. And take a look at the current satellite data, which we'll do. Currently, why has it not strengthened a lot? Well, we still have wind shear to the north here in the Gulf of Mexico. So that is still inhibiting this from being able to reach its potential as soon as possible. But that is exiting out of the way. That is heading out to the east along with Franklin. That kind of it's connected a little bit. And so as we see that happen, we'll start to see the outflow be able to expand more to the north. It will have an easier time of intensifying, and then we will also be looking at it really some of those the deep ocean heat content it used to intensify. And also, it's going to be going into some of this good stuff here, right? Typically, anything in those light blues, and then you start getting to greens, those are some really good stuff. But you can see here, there's a lot of yellows, a lot of reds, even too. Um, there is a ton of fuel to work with here in the Gulf of Mexico, and that is really what's going to be a big part of driving Adalia to continue to allow it to strengthen. And as we see wind shear subside over the next 12 to 18 hours or so, we're going to see it steadily keep moving northward as it's impacting Cuba currently, and it's going to slide to the east potentially. And then whether it hits more towards Tampa or north of Tampa, that is still yet to be decided. But there is a really strong, I worded carefully a tweet yesterday about how Tampa should continue to keep an eye on this because there is still a significant threat. Take a look at the cone here. Tampa, if you don't know already, Tampa is a major storm surge prone area. They haven't happened to have gotten hit a lot lately. But a track that deviates more on the eastern side of the cone, which Ian last year as an example, every storm is different, but that's just one example. It can They use this as a center track. The center track does not mean that's where the hurricane is going to go. Very rarely is it ever going. Uh, what's up, Bashan? Very rarely is it ever going to go right over the center track, and that is why I continue to reiterate that Tampa should be on the lookout for a significant storm surge with this. Already in the 4 to 7 foot range, you get a little bit stronger of a hurricane with a significant RI episode. Then you can start looking and you get a track a little bit closer. Now we start talking about closer to double digits, and that is a significant life threatening issue for the Tampa area. So Anywhere really up and down, from here, the east coast of Florida should still be on the lookout. Not necessarily for direct impacts more down here, but storm surge for sure. Still recovering from Ian. There's a lot of impacts that people are still going through from that Category 5 hurricane last year, and then also my main concern on the West Coast. Um, is Tampa currently, because I know where the cone is, and everybody's gearing up right here. And then Tampa people are seeing they're not in the cone, and they're starting to think they are okay. And maybe it will be, but I would definitely be, um, I would definitely be careful of not letting your guard down and making sure that you have a plan in place, because once right? We talked about it. Shear's going to subside. Really good fuel. It's rocket fuel here in the Gulf of Mexico for the storm to take off. Take a look at the sea surface temperatures too. Bang, bang. Nope, not this one. Ocean analysis. Bang. Here we go. Got it. Take a look at these sea surface temperatures 30, 31 degrees Celsius here in the Gulf of Mexico. Combine that with the deep ocean heat content values. It's just rocket fuel that this storm is going to work with. And taking a look here, we'll take a look at the HWRF hurricane model. The HWRF here, right, indicating right, still struggling a little bit to get going, as still a little bit of shear over the next few hours or so. But we'll look out for tomorrow morning. We can really start to look for this thing intensifying. Look how strong it really gets this thing too, right? It's not, don't read too deep into it, but it's just it's trying to it's trying to represent that it's an environment that is going to be really supportive. So it's hard to say exactly how strong it's going to get, but this is an environment that is going to be supportive of a that's going to be supportive of allowing an intense hurricane. Now, predicting eye wall replacement cycles and all that good stuff, the little intricacies that can happen, those can be really hard to predict. But that does not mean that the threat should be any less right now. Right, there is a threat for a major hurricane to hit the west coast of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. Huge, huge imminent threat. That is the bold headline. Within that, I would expect anywhere from at least 6 feet plus storm surge for a lot of folks along the western coast of of Florida, especially on the dirty side of the eye. The dirty side of the eye is the right side of the eye, so this is where the storm surge is going to come. Boom, right here, and obviously right on the right side. That doesn't mean it's not going to be on this side. Just when you get into the eye, the flow is like this, right? Because this is how a hurricane spins. So this is storm surge is actually it's going to be reverse storm surge on the western side, and it's going to be pulling the water out ahead of the storm. It's going to be working like this. So storm surge will be pushing on out ahead of the storm, but then once the eye gets closer, and you get on the western side, then it starts working. Watch, right? If we were to take this verbatim, then you start working storm surge more, right here, and then we move up another few hours, and boom, let's say if this was the actual scenario, right? Now storm surge is coming off, but all the storm surge is being pushed on. And while that's happening, you got a tornado threat that's going on here in Florida, and you also have storm surge that's continuing to push onto the coast, up and down the coast, all the way up and down the coast. So there's not going to be a non-impacted side of this storm. Both sides, even though the right side of the hurricane is the more life-threatening area to be, that does not exclude the fact that there's going to be very heavy flash flooding rainfall, a tornado threat, and um, strong winds clearly, right? It's again, don't take this verbatim, but it's just trying to highlight that there could be a really, really strong hurricane that could take place. You can see how strong it gets this thing. I was trying to make this, powerful Cat 4 on this one. It's possible. The environment supports it. Remember, And rapid intensification in the Gulf of Mexico is not to be underestimated. It is not to be underestimated. Time and time again, it continues to be tricky to forecast. And it's not just one linear, motion of rapid intensification that happens. There's pauses, there's breaks. These storms aren't perfect. It's not a perfect science. There are many, many different little details that take place that can hinder or enhance the environment. So it does not take a lot for that to happen. Now, in terms of current, the current environment, or what is currently happening, I let's play the satellite here. See, maybe a little bit of an eye. I think a little bit of an eye was trying to pop earlier. It looks like it may have had a little bit of land interaction, just a slight amount with the western tip of Cuba. Um, right here, a little bit of deviation east compared to earlier in the day and some or yesterday. Some of these models were pushing it more here. Now looking at them track more here. This is just not perfect, but just trying to give you an example. Like a few days ago, this was over the Yucatan, and then the models kind of had to adjust to what the current real time environment was doing. And that's why we're seeing some catch up on some of the models. Um, with this storm. I know I haven't been tweeting a lot myself, but I have been paying attention. I'm always paying attention, even when I'm not tweeting a lot and I'm retweeting more. I promise you, I'm paying attention to what is happening, even if I'm not streaming or going super in depth on everything on Twitter. Uh, so keep that in mind, right? And also, there's no problem with these storms intensifying right before landfall. Ian is another example. Michael, Sally, and in recent memory are all recent examples of storms that right before as they hit landfall um, are in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. I have not had a problem intensifying using that land interaction to help um, strengthen it right before landfall. It's a lot of complicated science that I'm not going to get into. I've gotten into it before, but I have a long day and I don't have the brain power to do that right now. So I'm just trying to keep basics and let you guys know of the current threats with this storm. Uh, but yeah, if you guys have questions, you can put it on Twitter and stuff. Um, I am looking through the comments. Not a ton, but good to see House and Anna Maria all sandbagged up. That's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, just have the supplies you need. You know where you live. Ideally, you know where you've been for a while now. If you're living in Florida, so know what you might need. Know what side of the eye you're going to be on. Um, or where you are on the forecast, and then as that's happening in real time, try to put it together. Use the information that's being given to you, and try to use that to help make the best decision for yourself as possible. If emergency management requires you to evacuate, please evacuate. Um, I was very, I'm very passionate about the evacuation stuff of ignorance. It's frustrating. Please evacuate if you are in a required zone to do so. Please evacuate. It is very frustrating to see people put their lives in jeopardy like that. No life is worth your ego. I'm sorry, just not. I think that covers the basics. I will try to do another stream tomorrow if I can. But in the meantime, this is, I know it's been, you all know this, but this is a very dangerous situation. Hurricanes in the Gulf are very volatile. They can really take off. They can really take off time and time again. You can find another way to be surprised. Don't let the current trends of today, where we thought, some thought maybe it would intensify more, it'd be a hurricane already. Just because it's not a hurricane already does not mean it can not intensify. A lot think about rapid intensification, right? The bare minimum of rapid intensification is 35 miles per hour in 24 hours, 30 knots. That means we are how many hours away from landfall? 2 days, about 42 hours, 45 hours away from landfall, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit plus or minus 6 to 9 hours. So we'll say at least 40 hours. I mean, that's a day and a half still before this thing hits landfall. And if it just goes on the lower side of rapid intensification, say 50 miles per hour, you got a 120 mile per hour major hurricane. That's a significant problem storm surge wise, and all the other threats, the wind threat. So take this into consideration that hurricanes, the forecast is not verbatim. It is volatile when it comes to rapidly intensifying Gulf hurricanes. The track can deviate some as well. It is not a perfect science. Maybe it's not the answer you wanted, but it's true. Okay, so s- s- this wind shear is going to subside a little bit more um, throughout the night into tomorrow morning, and as that happens, it is going to allow for it to use that rocket fuel, and it's going to be able to take off. Okay, um, please take this very seriously. Um, this has a chance to be the most impactful U.S. hurricane of the year, which may not be saying a lot given it's been a quieter hurricane season compared to the last recent years, but that doesn't mean it only takes one. Remember that. It only takes one. Um, and so I hope you all take proper precaution, alert friends and family, do what needs to be done to make sure everybody can stay safe. All right, I'll try to do another stream tomorrow. Until then, I'm glad this hotspot kind of worked out and it's not super laggy, hopefully. But I will maybe see you all tomorrow. Thanks for stopping in. Peace.